Inside a dining room filled with exquisite cutlery and a large table with delicious meals that would make any mouth water. Young master, please stop. It was an accident. Shut up. Servants tried to stop their young master from beheading a young woman. The woman was trembling on the ground while covering her head. Her arms were black and blue from his repeated kicks. Get your hands off me before I kill all of you next. The servants who tried to stop him backed away in fright. His voice was filled with killing intent as his aura threatened to crush all of the knights and servants. Arnold von Berkley. He is the young heir of the Berkley household. A household that had served the imperial family for generations. His father and the emperor fought together in battle when they were but vassal and prince. Their relationship had been that close ever since they won wars together. Arnold was expected to marry the second princess to make their ties to imperial family stronger. Today would have been their first meeting as fiancés instead of childhood friends, and yet she dares to cancel with a shitty excuse that her body was unwell. The servants could do nothing as they saw Arnold summoning his aura sword out of thin air. All the maid did was accidentally spill tea on his shirt. She was a commoner that his mother brought in to work for her. Since the madam was out, she decided to take the duties of serving the young master together with his personal maid. Now she made the mistake of her life, upsetting the young heir of the Berkley household. Not many survive. The servants didn't do anything to help the girl, partly because they didn't know her very well and that the young heir was the opponent. He was said to be a tyrant that would crush anyone even if they made a small mistake. He was a self-centered man that arrogantly flaunted his strength. He had sexually assaulted many girls at the academy before just because he liked them. No one could stay away from his clutches. They weren't safe. Only one had stood up to him. He was the hero that would have slayed the Demon King together with his comrades. They could be said to be equals, or more like the hero was far more talented. Arnold was a man with unlimited potential to grow. The worst thing about him was that he was aware of how talented he was. This caused his personality to worsen. By the time he was 10 years old, he was already deemed a prodigy of the empire. Many houses requested to marry him to their daughters in hopes of building a connection. His father, Marcus, was a mighty general of the past that managed to gain ducal status and become one of the most influential patriarchs of the empire. He wasn't just wealthy. He was a 9-star knight, so he was possibly one of the strongest people in the nation. With such strong genes in his body, it's no wonder why his son became so strong. But his strength and family background gave him a distorted personality. Arnold paid the cries of the servants no heed and only lifted his sword. His entire body was giving off a powerful and domineering presence.
It seems I made a mistake thinking I could leave you alone after what response you received from Her Highness. A middle-aged man stepped into the room. The servants and knights sighed in relief when the Duke came into the room. He returned from his trip. Another old man was busy dusting off his glove after taking it off. Sebastian. He was the butler of the patriarch of the family. No ordinary servant had the guts to hit the young master. He, however, was a different story. He was the one who trained Arnold after all. He was a 7-star martial artist. Excuse the mess, my lord. And I apologize for hitting young Master Al. He bowed to the middle-aged man. Do not worry, Sebas. This little brat needs to be disciplined properly. The man removed his coat and gave it to a maid. His name was Marcus von Berkley. He was the Duke and the Lord of this city, Lauran. The city was located about 4 kilometers from the Empire. The princess and Arnold had a meeting today, but she cancelled it due to the circumstances. Arnold lay unconscious on the floor, perhaps suffering from a concussion since he wasn't moving. What happened? Marcus' eyes scanned the room. The young woman raised her hand. She lowered her head in shame as she muttered in a tiny voice, I accidentally spilled tea on the young master's shirt. Marcus sighed. Getting worked up over such a thing. Go to Adriana. She's in my office. Chances were that even if Marcus calmed Arnold down, the latter would just find the girl and hurt her again, even against his mother's orders. He was that petty and narrow-minded despite being a genius. No one in this household liked him. Rather, they would be happy if the young master was thrown out of the house. Only his sisters and parents still held affection for him since they were family. The other concubines didn't like him at all. Tea, thank you. She ran out of the room as if she didn't want to stay there. Marcus looked around the room. His eyes landed on a certain girl. She was the girl that Arnold brought in 2 years ago after visiting the slave market. Her hair was blood red and her eyes were blue. She was even more beautiful than some noble ladies even without makeup. This was why Arnold bought her the moment his eyes landed on her. She became his maid and the one who services him at night. He assaulted her one night and forced her to stay, otherwise he'd destroy her family's little shop. She had no choice but to stay with him and pleasure him. Even if she was sold to pay off her parents' debt, she still loved them. She only gets a few days a month to visit them. Lauran. Take care of Arnold for now. Tell him to come to my office when he wakes up. Her pupils slightly shook. She knew that he would lash out at her the moment he woke up. His fist would never miss its target when he was angry. Lauran rubbed her arm and nodded. Of course, Your Grace. Marcus nodded and looked to Sebastian. Sebas. Yes. Help Lauran take Arnold upstairs. As you command. Sebastian bowed. The head of the family left the room soon after. The 17-year-old boy's eyes opened up as he felt a mind-numbing pain that assaulted his head. He gritted his teeth as he held his head in his hands. A ceiling? And a luxurious room as well? Wasn't I at the convenience store? Ha! Where am I? Young master. An emotionless voice called out to him. He turned his eyes over and couldn't help but look at the girl with widened eyes. His mouth opened in disbelief. Red hair that resembled a rose. Blue eyes that could be described as beautiful as the ocean. She was wearing a maid outfit that they usually wore in Europe. He knew who she was when he saw her peculiar hair and facial features. There was literally no one else who had such beautiful sculpted facial features on this continent. Lauran. Yes. Lauran, a major character in a game he used to play every day at home. After losing his job, he turned his attention towards gaming after leaving it behind to focus on his social life after high school. His hard work and dedication earned him the top rankings in the game. His guild was ranked number 3 on the leaderboards. By the way, the players couldn't become the hero. Only special events allowed that. In order to play the game, you'd need to make your own avatar online. You gather other players and then make a guild or clan with them. You could choose to help the hero slay the Demon King and the other villains or not. Liam was part of the number 3 guild of the top 100 rankings. He was a mage, so his equipment was obviously magic items. If this is the game, then the things I earned in the game should still exist, right? He wasn't sure if his hypothesis was correct or not. Since the game was an open world before, players could simply steal another player's loot as they wished. As the game was the future of gaming, you could basically do everything in it. Even get a family. But due to social issues, the devs made some limitations. Too much of something good could harm a person's mentality after all. Anyway, even a puny noob at level 1 could invade the Demon King's territory. That depends if they could survive the beast glades. Liam was a level 100 before. Not many people were able to reach the level cap of the game. Lauran hesitantly approached the bed. She held her hand on Arnold's forehead to feel the temperature. She wasn't exactly worried, but she didn't want to be scolded by Arnold's mother, so she had to make sure he was all right. How do you feel? It feels like I'm hungover. Hungover? Wait a second. If she called me young master. Arnold jumped out of the bed and ran towards the mirror in the room. He froze when he saw the person's reflection. The face Arnold saw resembled the illustration of the character in the game. Dark blue hair and blue eyes. He had a sharp jawline and narrowed eyes. His skin was pale and his hands were chapped from training with the sword for his entire life. His body was forged from the training he did throughout his childhood. Arnold von Berkley. He was one of the critically renowned villains of star fantasy. I was reborn as the villain. Arnold couldn't understand what happened or why he ended up as the villain of star fantasy. What is this shit? I was on my way to the convenience store to buy something and now this had to happen. He turned his eyes over to the girl standing meekly by the bed. She quickly lowered her head to hide her hateful expression. Arnold knew who she was. Lauran, the first Archmaid's descendant. She killed him by dropping an entire meteor on his villa where he was resting. This happened in the future after she couldn't take his beatings and rough assault anymore. They never knew who killed him. The player could either choose to kill Arnold or decide to let Lauran forget about the past and embrace the future. If they chose the latter, then Lauran would leave the household, fall in love with the protagonist and join his hero party. Was it even possible to be reincarnated or transmigrated into a video game? It wasn't even that popular in the few years that it was released. Only after a while did the game gain a lot of popularity. The hardcore fans that were there from day one received special prizes. Liam received multiple high-ranking weapons along with an extremely powerful battleship. The goal of the game was to find all the star-ranked artifacts and defeat the final bosses. If I'm in a game, then I should have a status, right? But no matter how many times he called status, it never popped up. Was it because he was an irregularity of this world? Were there others like him? Shit. What is this bullshit? Liam, no, Arnold sighed as he grabbed his head. Okay, calm down. I should get to the bottom of this. At that moment, Lauran spoke again. Master told me to inform young master to head to his office after you've woken up. What happened that I feel like my head is on the verge of exploding? It felt like he jumped headfirst into concrete. He sighed again to calm himself. His heart was pulsating much faster than average as his mind was full of confusion. Take me there. The two of them walked through the corridor. Arnold could see the servants avoid eye contact with him when they passed by him. He smiled bitterly as he remembered what a tyrant Arnold usually was. Harassment, assault and beatings. He would do such things to anyone that so much as pissed him off slightly. Even his slave maid wasn't safe from his clutches. Young Master Al. At that moment, a sweet voice called out to Al. He turned around and saw a young woman approach him. HM? Isn't she? Lady Victoria. Victoria. She was Arnold's personal maid. She was, in fact, the one who raised Arnold ever since he was a young boy. Victoria came from a vassal house of the Berkley family. She started working here when she was at the tender age of 15. Despite serving the Berkley family for a decade, she hadn't aged that much. Rather, she had grown more beautiful. She was a woman with long black hair and red eyes. Her collar was slightly open and revealed her big chest. Holy Mother of... He already saw her illustrations in the game. She was always deemed the big boob maid. Players could receive quests from her, as well as help in the game. Out of all the women the villain Arnold was close with, she was the only one that didn't fall for the hero or plot his death. Rather, she was in love with someone else. I heard you caused quite the trouble. That's not very noble of you. Let me take it over from here, slave. Go to your chambers. Only a few people could call him Al. his mother, sisters, and finally, his personal maid, Victoria. Yes. Lauran obediently left. Let me take you there. Victoria was smiling, but her eyes were coldly looking at Arnold. I thought you've grown, Al. Why did you have to let me down this much? Her eyes seemed to convey her thoughts as such. Okay. Arnold didn't say anything and only followed after her. He could see her garter belt under her maid dress wrapping around her meaty but strong thighs. With a body like that, any man would go crazy with lust. However, she had yet to choose a husband. She was still pure as well. That further intensified the animalistic lust in men. Her hair released a sweet scent of flowers as Al walked behind her. It was the kind of smell that wasn't choking like all those ladies of nobility who wear so much makeup. Arnold failed to understand why she didn't fall for the hero. The hero was loved by all. He was blessed with peerless handsomeness. His skills and swordsmanship was second to none as well. No one could compete against such a charismatic individual. Even his fiancée, Olivia, who was on par with Victoria in terms of beauty, fell for this scary stew of a hero. He was literally without a fault, and that was why everyone loved him. No, he had one particular flaw, but it was fixed when he had his comrades around him. She was the one who protected Arnold when he was about to be slashed by the hero's sword. That was how Arnold became a main villain. He was already teased to be one, but that was the trigger. All the players cried for her death. She was an important figure in the game and the hero just had to kill her. Many didn't like how it was set up. Didn't Arnold match the hero in strength? We have arrived. Before Victoria pushed the door open, she fixed Arnold's shirt and tie. She patted down his spiky dark blue hair and looked at him seriously. Please don't make a fuss this time. You will be in the presence of the Duke. Arnold cleared his throat. He haughtily walked past her with his hands in his pockets. Whatever. Out of my way. She smiled wryly and stepped back. That was how Arnold usually spoke to her. Good old bastard, Al. I will prepare your bath in the meantime. Victoria bowed before descending down the stairs. Liam sighed in relief before opening the door to the Patriarch's office. Sit down. He saw red eyes glare at him from the other side of the room. Marcus von Berkley. One of the strongest knights on the continent.
Star Fantasy, or better known as the grandfather of the RPG genre, was a game that released over a decade ago. At first, not much was known about the game. Not many people played it on launch day. No one wanted to waste their time on a game that might have flopped in a few years. Liam, however, had plenty of time when he was a high school kid. He always bunked school and never did his homework. To him, it didn't matter whether he passed or failed. He was the kind of person who lived in the now. What better way to waste your time than play a small game that just released? He and some of his friends built their own computer from the ground up, so it was able to handle the game fairly well. They didn't seem interested in first, but it wasn't the same for Liam. He was a fan of fantasy games. The kind that could serve as escapism. It was his favorite genre. As for most teenagers and young adults, he instantly fell in love with the game. He stayed out of school for days, weeks, and finally months. He had no family, so no one was around to nag him to go to school. It was only a few months after that he got bored. This game is so basic now. I've seen everything. Liam would always complain about that. He even streamed the game every now and then to see if anything changed. Sadly, not much changed in the next couple of months since launch day. They would update the game every now and then, but nothing major. That was until a year later that the game released. As a perk for being a day one player, Liam received countless gifts from the company. If it wasn't for him streaming their game, then no one would have wanted to play it. It was only a small game at first, after all. We would like you to test out our prototype. That was the email he received, along with a code for a certain something. Dunfer, one of the first flying battleships in the game. Needless to say, he was a monster with this ship. He raided other players' bases and stole their loot. He was literally a villain in the eyes of the newbies. Liam continued to attack many more players out of pure enjoyment. He was like a god. Millions of views came rolling in when they heard the first battleship was being tested by a high school kid. But that wasn't all. He didn't just attract the eyes of the average viewers, but of the other DOP Day 1 players as well. One day, he was thinking of raiding a small battleship that was about to pass by his territory. He thought they would be chumps like all the others. How wrong he was. Alex, a swordsman who was also at the level cap of the game, challenged him to a duel. In duels, battleships are not allowed, so Liam had to fight him using his own power. Mages are typically at a disadvantage against swordsmen. They were more powerful but far slower than swordsmen. That depended on the other party's stats. At his level, he could beat a mid-level cap 50 swordsman without breaking a sweat. There was nothing to worry about. After all, there were only a few players who reached the level cap. I have these items. Kukuku. When I win, you become my servant. Kayahaha. Very well, great magic caster. He had so many star-ranked artifacts that he didn't know what to do with them. The developers must have appreciated his support a lot. Eh? But what he didn't expect was that his opponent was just like him. Alex defeated Liam with a Sanctity Sword Strike. One of the most powerful moves in the game. It was one strike. One. It was humiliating. I accept defeat. I will follow you as your servant. No. I wish to have you as my partner. I wonder how you're doing, Alex. Arnold sat down on the chair and crossed his legs. His posture wasn't upright and polite. Rather, it was that of a hooligan. A vein bulged on Sebastian's temple. He was about to shout at Arnold for his rudeness, but the Duke raised his hand. He stepped back and nodded his head. Marcus crossed his fingers and looked at his son. He was a man with a towering build, strong cheekbones and a chiseled face. His beard was well-groomed and his hair was swept neatly to the side. Despite being over 50 years old, Marcus was still a handsome man. Arnold, do you know why I called you here immediately after I arrived at home? Marcus spoke after a brief moment of silence. To nag, probably? Young Master Dash. Sebastian had a twisted look on his face as he glared at Arnold. The latter almost fell from his chair from fright. But he pretended he wasn't scared and only harumphed. Come done, Sebas. Or would you like to leave the room? Ha! I will be as silent as the night. Excuse my rudeness. He looked down in apology. Marcus only nodded. True. I am going to nag you. However, that won't change anything. Just like it hasn't for years now. His father said. I have been visiting the nearby fief lords and heard quite a lot of things from them. How my son has been annoying their daughters, burning their fields, and harassing their knights out of pure enjoyment. Aha, that it? Marcus sighed. I heard that you impregnated a village girl. She came forward and said that it happened 2 months ago. Tell me, son, do you not see a woman when you look at a female? Are they all just tools to vent your lust out on? The girl was in tears when she told me what you did. She was unwilling to bear your child. Yet you didn't listen. Arnold sighed exaggeratedly. She should have said no in the first place. Besides, contraceptives exist. Shouldn't this mysterious girl have come to my father when I was present? That way he would be able to confirm whether or not he slept the person. He could also make Victoria verify since he didn't really remember anything Arnold did in the past. They are not cheap. You know that as much as I do. Marcus took off his tie and creaked his neck. I was looking forward to retiring after your wedding, but that is now impossible. I'm getting old now, son. Arnold was expected to marry Olivia and connect their two families. This was something both Marcus and the Emperor were looking forward to. This would hinder the foreign nation royalties from using marriage as a means of gaining power of the imperial family of this empire. If one looked at the surface, it seemed like a good idea. However, Arnold already knew that it was a bad idea to engage the two of them. Can I leave now, old man? Arnold. Marcus' face changed from its usual calmness. There was now a piercing cold glint in his eyes. Sit down. Now. He was serious about this. Arnold sat down silently. Marcus wasn't the type of guy to be hard on his family even if they caused trouble for him. However, Arnold could see that the line had been crossed with his shenanigans. I have been thinking of selecting another heir to fill your role. Huh? Sebastian looked towards Marcus in surprise. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. I apologize for not telling you, Sebas. However, this was necessary. This has been put on hold for years now. I waited to see if my son would change. But alas. Marcus leaned back on his chair. Starting tomorrow, you are no longer the heir of the Berkley ducal household. The duchy will also be given to the new heir. What? Arnold shouted. How can you make this decision without consulting me first? You can't just give our lineage that has lasted for hundreds of years to some miscreant. Arnold hit his father's desk. A large dent formed on the surface. Consulting you first? Marcus stood up and glared into Arnold's eyes. This is my decision. Isn't it obvious that I should select the most favorable route to ensure my family survives? Master, I do not understand. I thought there wouldn't be any trouble if young Master Arnold became the patriarch, Sebastian said. You were wrong about that, Sebas. If I'm being honest, Arnold succeeding me would be the worst outcome at present. I thought things would change when Olivia marries him. We would gain the support of the imperial family so all our opponents would forget about trying to take us down. So this is why you want the marriage to be over and done with. Nobles usually wait until they are 20 before they marry each other, but you said that it was fine if the two married at 17 years old. Now why you said that? Exactly, Sebas. I discussed this with his mother and she has given me her blessing. Marcus looked at Arnold. Son, you should understand that the world of the aristocracy is a cruel world. Sometimes we have to make decisions even if they upset others. Because it's to ensure our survival? Arnold finished his father's words. This is for the best. Please understand. Yes, father. Well, I don't really care. Arnold, no, Liam was only acting. Why the heck would he care about the position? All that awaited the heir was hardships and even more assassinations. He would much rather not be at the end of someone's blade. He was an average gamer just a day ago. What would he know about fighting nobles and surviving in the political world? I'm grateful that you understand the merits. I'm too old for stressing this much. I want to take my wife and have vacation for an entire year. Marcus muttered with a sigh. Arnold asked with feigned ignorance, so who is the next heir? Is it Jack? No. It's impossible for me to wait until Jack matures. He is still only 10 years old. Marcus denied Arnold's question. Of course, Arnold knew who it was. So he's another noble's son who you adopted. Well, I did adopt him. You're half right about that, Marcus said vaguely. He looked towards the door. Come in, Luke. My son. I am sorry for eavesdropping. Sir. A timid, shy voice came through the door when it opened. A boy with blonde hair and blue eyes entered. What the? Who's this little pipsqueak? Arnold stood in front of Luke like a towering mountain. The 14-year-old boy's legs were shivering. I'm. This is Luke. I met him a year ago when I had meetings with my subordinates to solve the crop decline. Marcus stepped between the two. He could tell that Arnold was trying to intimidate Luke. He'll be my replacement? Look at him. Arnold grabbed Luke's arm. It was so soft and small like a twig. He's so damn delicate and tiny. How is he supposed to succeed this me? Arnold let go of his hand and bent down. His blue eyes glared at Luke. Oi. Why yes, sir. Luke answered politely while rubbing his hand. You and me. Fight. Right now. Eh. Luke looked at Marcus and Sebastian and saw both of them shake their heads. Both had the same thoughts judging from their expressions. Not again. Yeah. Who's that cute boy? I don't know. Oh no. The young master is dragging him to the training grounds. Nearby maids noticed Arnold dragging Luke by the arm down the corridor. The Duke and the head butler were silently following behind. Both were poker-faced. What's going on? Another servant asked. It seems the young master is taking that boy to do the ritual. The ritual referred to when Arnold tests the power of those that interest him. He would usually flaunt his power to new knight recruits. There were even some of the senior knights who faced him as well. Not many of them were strong enough to face him back then. Why, young master? Luke was trying his best to escape Arnold's grip. It was way harder than before. Shut up. I'm gonna show my old man that you're nothing. A nobody. How the hell can he think that a little kid like you can become a better heir than me? After walking for a while, they arrived at the backyard where the training grounds were. It was an open grass plain. The forest was further down the hill. There was a small river as well. That was where Arnold and Olivia used to play when they were kids. Take up your arms, Arnold said and glanced at the servants. They brought over a racket filled with weapons of different kinds. As usual, he selected a double-edged sword. Let me taste the power of the hero.
Star Fantasy had many bosses or villains, as you could call them. The final villain was, unsurprisingly, the Demon King. He was a fallen devil who was banished from the underworld. His story was never truly explained in detail, but some believed he was the illegitimate child of Satan. Anyway, Arnold was one of the endgame bosses. Classified as a Dragon Lord ranked threat. Dragon Lords were the highest-ranking species in this world. It could be said that they were at peak 9th star. Arnold was someone few could stand up against. Those few included the hero and his party members. Lauran, the Archmage. The one given this title has reached the peak of magic. Flora, the former princess, now master swordsman. Some believed that she was from a fallen kingdom before she migrated to the empire of Yulia. Alatus, the divine guard of the heavens. He was the bearer of the holy shield and the protector of the hero. And finally, Olivia. She was a great strategic genius born every 100 years. Players had tried raiding the empire during her rule, only to be defeated mercilessly by her tactics. It wasn't just that her IQ was extremely high, but she was also said to be a boss-level threat. That meant that if she were not the hero's wife, then she would have been a threat as great as adult Arnold. This was why Arnold had to tread carefully in the future. He shouldn't antagonize Olivia openly. Rather, he should gain her trust. There was one other thing that frightened players about her. She had the SS-ranked innate talent that allowed her to tame spirit beasts. Spirit beasts were ranked the same as powerhouses in this world. The weakest could possibly rank lower than 5, while the strongest could be above 8. There had been speculation that there existed a level beyond 9th rank, but no one believed this claim. Olivia's favorite beasts were Negard, the divine lion, and Puba, the chaos angelic eagle. Both were ranked at 8. This was why Olivia was feared not only for her intelligence. The hero managed to make such a woman fall for him. It was rather sad looking at this boy who was supposed to be the hero in the future. I'll have to look after him for now. But I can't show my concern openly. I'm supposed to be a bastard, after all. Al stood in a stance. Luke was finding it hard to keep his sword from trembling. It was a pathetic sight. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned their attention towards the fight. The Duke didn't seem to mind that the servants were also watching. He only had an interested look on his face. Another person stepped through the back door leading to the training grounds. It was Adriana, Al's mother. Behind her, Victoria followed. Victoria wanted to intervene to stop the fight, but then she saw that even the Duke wasn't doing anything. She knew right then that the Duke had something in mind. Who is this? Adriana looked towards the Duke with a questioning gaze. Even she didn't know about Luke. Sir Duke? Is this a test? Luke looked towards Marcus. The latter continued with his silence. He was looking at Luke, but it seemed like his attention was somewhere else. Oh, don't look away from your opponent. I'll hit Luke with the sheath of the sword. It sent mind-numbingly pain up his spine. Gua! Luke fell on his knees from the attack to his head. Blood dripped down his face. To be a true leader of the great Berkley family, one must be strong. Blue aura rose from the tip of Arnold's sword. He pointed the tip at Luke. If you can survive from this aura condensed blast, then I'll consider giving up my position. Does that sound fair, Father? Marcus nodded slowly. It was a plain ridiculous thing to do. How could a boy like Luke survive an aura blast from a 5th-star knight? Since the blast is focused on a single point, the power was above those of normal aura blasts. Earl smiled evilly. Luke tried his best to stand up. His head was ringing like crazy. So much so that his vision was like looking through a tunnel. The tip of the sword was right in front of his face. He felt the scorching heat of aura near his face. He gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. Aura! A cute shout came from behind Arnold. HM! He turned his head, then saw a girl's shoe aim for his face. The kick made him stagger backwards and disable the aura blast after losing concentration. Luke! Are you okay? The girl stood between Luke and Arnold. She glared at the young man with dark blue hair. Non. What are you doing here? Luke was taken aback seeing his childhood friend stand up to Arnold. She glared at Arnold with her hands on her hips and a pout on her lips. Who do you think you are to bully Luke, huh? Just because he's smaller than you, doesn't mean you can pick fights with him. You nobles are all the same. The girl had long auburn-colored hair and green eyes. She was the kind of girl who was small and cute but feisty. She was Luke's childhood friend and the one who he saw as his sister. Arnold, along with the audience watching, was surprised to see the girl kick him so brazenly. He tasted blood and wiped his mouth. His lips hit his tooth, which tore it a bit on the inside. Why did you follow that old man with the nice suit? Non pinched Luke's cheek. Those knights kept chasing me away when I tried to get in here. Why did you leave without telling Mommy at least? I am sorry. Ho ho ho. Marcus couldn't hold in his laugh. Who is this young lady? Your girlfriend. Gigi girlfriend. Luke's entire face flushed red. No. I'm his sister. No, forget that. You're that old man who took him. Non ran towards Marcus and punched his stomach. Take this. You decrepit old man. Stealing boys like a creep. Are you a pervert interested in boys? WHA. Sebastian was so caught off guard by her actions that he froze. When everyone looked at Marcus' face, they could see a dark shadow loom. Non continued punching his gut while shouting that he was a creep. Marcus raised his hand. This action made everyone shiver. Non. That's Duke Berkley. Luke shouted. He thought that Marcus was about to hit her, but his next action baffled everyone. Huh? Duke. Non looked dumbfounded at the middle-aged man with a dark blue beard. Oh ho! Excuse me, young miss. I didn't mean any harm when I asked Luke to come to my residence. Marcus patted her head with a hearty laugh. Sebastian sighed in relief. If Marcus hit the girl, then nothing would have remained of her. It was a godsend that he was a patient man with a love for children. Luke hurriedly pulled Non backwards and chided her for her behavior. Marcus continued laughing at their innocence. The tension was released from everyone's bodies. Don't do that again. Luke shouted while shaking Non's shoulders. Okay. Okay. Geez, stop overreacting. I didn't know, okay. I'm overreacting. You kicked the young master. Luke thought and smiled wryly. Oh, no. The young master. He had forgotten how short-tempered Arnold was. He heard the kind of tyrant the young master of the Berkley family was. He felt his spine tingle when a heavy pressure weighed down on him from behind. Non noticed a towering shadow look down on both of them. Luke was shoved aside by the shadow. All he saw in those few seconds was a big hand in the shape of a fist strike Non in the stomach. Her eyes went white and saliva flew out of her mouth. The sun behind his back casted a rather ominous shadow over Arnold's figure. His body was oozing with ominous blue aura. Non. At that moment, Luke felt something inside his body explode. It was like a man-made dam on the verge of breaking apart. Not just Luke sensed this overwhelming outpour of aura, the same could be said for the powerhouses of the Empire. They didn't know what it was, but they felt it. A sleeping dragon awoke from its slumber. Marcus felt it before. It was that day he met Luke for the first time. A bandit wanted to hurt his family, which was Non, her sister and mother. The Duke was called because the bandit was a dangerous criminal who slaughtered thousands of villagers. As a man who loved his citizens, he wouldn't just let such a maniac loose. However, when he arrived at the scene, it was over. All he saw was a crater filled with aura that burned like the sun. It was the legendary golden aura. Non collapsed on the ground. Think twice before doing that again. Arnold was about to turn around, however, all he saw was a gigantic wall of golden aura burst toward him. The source? The future hero, Luke. Was it too much? That was Al's last thought before he lost consciousness from being hit in the head a second time. Later that same day. Where am I? What's this sweet scent? This soft feeling? Al thought to himself as he took a deep sniff of the pleasant scent that he smelled. It was combined with the softness that he had never felt before, even on a pillow. He wanted to lay there forever. He smeared his face and clutched onto the soft pillow. Not only was it pleasant to smell, but to touch as well. Did I just hear a moan? Arnold looked up. He could see two mountain peaks that seemed to block the sun, hang over his face. He looked down. There was a uniform similar to the uniform the maids wore in the household. Although, this one was a little more extravagant. He pulled up the skirt a little to see what he was lying on. Two plump thighs with a garter belt appeared in his face. That's inappropriate. The woman slapped away his hands. It was a familiar voice. Al silently stood up and looked at the person. It was Victoria Lauran, the eldest daughter of Baron Lauran. If the two mountain peaks that seemed to defy gravity didn't tell him who she was, then the beauty mark below her left eye did. Al stood silently as if nothing happened and turned around. It was to hide the blush on his face. Oh my God! Oh my God! It's her! He had never even been in contact with a girl before in his life. Well, only online. The guild master of their guild, Alex, was a woman as well. Since he was the vice guild master, they spent a lot of time together. No one could tell that she was a woman since she used a male avatar. Only Al knew. But still, that didn't make the current situation any less weird. Face to face was different than talking online. God, she's so gorgeous. The myth. These teenage hormones. Arnold couldn't believe how dangerous this woman's beauty was. She was just sitting there, but he had already gotten a hard-on. Are you okay? Victoria sounded a little flustered. She fanned herself with her hand. What happened? Al asked. Victoria fumbled with her words. She knew how much of a sore loser he was. You lost. I looked at the orange hue cast over the sky by the setting sun. It had been a few hours ever since the fight. Did she take care of me ever since then? He looked back at Victoria. She was back to her usual self. Her expression was calm and composed. I see. He didn't freak out as he did with most of his losses in the past. Victoria would always have to calm him down somehow, so what was happening was a little surprising. She always had to pat his head and tell him that everything was okay. Where is everyone? Everyone is gathered in the dining room. The Duke said that you are welcome to join them. That is, if you want to. Victoria explained and dusted off her dress. Or would you like me to book you a table at a restaurant? There is a special dish being served at Lumerge tonight. I'll join them. Are you sure, Al? Victoria hugged him from behind. I know losing your right as heir is hard to take in, but you have to be strong. Don't force yourself to prove anything, okay? TCH, Al slapped away her hand and walked out of her embrace. Whatever. Victoria blew air out of her nose and closed her eyes. She opened her eyes when she no longer heard Al's footsteps. The training grounds was now completely silent. He looked so cute in his sleep. Fu. Victoria chuckled as she remembered him clutching to her like a baby. It was like the times he used to follow her around and cling to her when he was young. I'll definitely make you my wife one day. Huh, I wish you stayed that pure boy you once were. Chapter 4. Arnold walked through the corridor. By now, servants should have been at their busiest of the day since the entire family had a tradition of having dinner together. However, someone was standing in the hallway. He noticed the person standing next to one of the knight statues. Master, are you feeling all right? Lauran appeared in front of him. She was holding a neatly folded shirt in her arms. Please take this. She held the shirt out to him. Arnold looked down at his attire. Except for his pants that were still intact, his shirt lost a few buttons. He took off the shirt and took the one Lauran held out to him. I received your schedule for tomorrow from Lady Victoria. Should I book a carriage to the Stalk territory tomorrow so you can meet with Earl Stalk regarding? Cancel everything. Arnold said after pulling down the shirt. Pardon. Lauran was confused by his flat answer. Cancel everything on that list. Those duties aren't my responsibilities anymore. I'll ask my mother to attend in my place for tomorrow. Now that I have time to myself, I need to find answers. Are there more of me or am I the only one? Arnold thought to himself as he walked in the direction of the dining room. Lauran followed close behind him. Is everything the same as the hero's DLC story? What happened earlier today where he met Luke was something that actually happened in the extra content that the company released. However, Non wasn't supposed to be part of the story until a few years later. Why did she get mixed into the story this early? Was it for convenience sake? It was like events happened that somehow changed the flow of the story. He wanted to know if the game's plot would follow the same story. Instead of doing whatever is on that list. Arnold stopped in front of the dining room door. He could hear his family talk inside. He turned his head and looked at Lauran. Have Luke ready to leave by tomorrow morning before the sun rises. There's somewhere I have to take him. That's odd. Just a few hours ago he was attempting to take Master Luke's life. Understood. I will dutifully do so. Lauran didn't ask any further and agreed to follow to his order. Before I forget, come to my chambers tonight when everyone is asleep. When Lauran was about to leave, she froze. Arnold's words made her body go stiff. Must I wear the usual? She forced down her pride and spoke through gritted teeth. Don't be late. Arnold didn't hear her question and put his hand on the doorknob after that. Lauran wanted to say something, but she decided to stay quiet. In his current state, if she got him angry, then he'd do more than just hit her. Yes, master, Lauran said coldly before walking away. When Lauran left, Arnold stood frozen with his hand on the door. How did the original Arnold act after the fight again? You bastard! You cheated by using a scroll. I want a rematch. Arnold yelled that to Luke over the dining table. It was a memory he couldn't forget. Let's just be silent about what happened. Luke went through a partial awakening yesterday. Arnold figured that it must have been because he saw Non get hurt. She was the love of his life, so it wasn't surprising. When Arnold opened the door, many gazes turned towards him. All the chatter stopped. Non and Luke were sitting next to the Duke. The two were being questioned by the Duke about a lot of things before Earl showed up. Naturally, Arnold had to act pissed. His face twisted evilly. Finally showed up, huh? His older sister, Anna, looked at him with disapproval. She crossed her arms. Do you have no shame for your behavior earlier today? Let's not talk about that, Anna. Marcus shook his head with a frown on his face. The boys settled whatever feud there was between them. Right, Arnold? TCH. Arnold clicked his tongue when he saw that the only open seat was next to Luke. Luke seemed to have realized too. His eyes widened. I'm sorry. He bowed his head with his hands on the table. Arnold walked over to his seat and sat down. That was merely a fluke, all right? You were just lucky. He spouted the words they expected from a sore loser. Judith, the second wife, chuckled. Something funny? Arnold asked with a frown. She put her hand in front of her mouth and shook her head. Oh dear me. Forgive me. I just remembered a story my son told me the other day. It still makes me chuckle. She was a woman with black hair and red eyes. Her body was slim and fit. Sitting next to her was her son, Jack. He was a 10-year-old boy with the same hair and eyes as his mother. He was the second eldest son of this household. His baby brother, Thomas, was still a toddler. His mother was from a foreign nation's royalty. She was the 11th princess, so she wouldn't be expected gain much from the king. That was why she was married to the famous general known as the spear god, Marcus. Although not as with his father, Jack was also quite skilled with the spear. He was the only one born with the right qualities to use a spear. Melina, the youngest daughter who was Jack's age, was a magic caster and she was enrolled into a junior magic school before she goes to the academy. Anna wasn't a warrior or mage of any kind. Rather, she owned a merchant firm in the imperial capital. They were in charge of supplying equipment to the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild. Adriana, the first wife, was a mage who finished her stage 7 exams just last year. Meaning, she was a full-fledged 7-star mage. The stages represented the difficulty of a course in magic classes. 1 to 3 was the basic courses offered in magic schools. 4 to 7 was what was offered at the academy. It had been a grueling 10 years, but she finally finished what was known as the highest and most difficult of magic exams. She would start her first year as a professor at the University of Magic Arts at the start of next year. Adriana had long brown hair and green eyes. She was in her 40s, but her physique was that of a young woman. Anna had the same features as her mother, while Melina looked more like her father and Arnold. Although her blue hair was a lighter tone than theirs. "What is to happen to Arnold, dear?" Judith asked with concern on her face. "Will he leave the family?" Everyone stiffened. Rather than sounding sad about the situation, she seemed delighted instead. That smile made it obvious. "I would never disown my son." "Why would you think I'd do that?" Marcus didn't seem to mind her question. "Well, he has been causing quite a lot of trouble. I figured this would be best for everyone. You know, some of the citizens have requested us to send him away to a faraway land." "Really now? Can you tell me who it is so I can deal with them myself?" Arnold butted in. "Calm down, son. As I've said, I will not go through such extreme measures. Luke is already successor. So what's the problem?" Marcus couldn't understand why they were even having the discussion. He had already made his decision. As the head of this household, shouldn't his decisions be final? "You have gotten soft, my lord. Where is that demon of the spear arts now?" Sebastian thought to himself. Marcus continued speaking. "If you have something to say, then be straightforward, Judith. Stop beating around the bush. I've known you for more than a decade by now, so I know you want to say something." "Indeed. I have something to say." Judith stood up. She pointed at Luke. "Why is it that this filthy commoner is inheriting the household and not my Jack?" Mother." Jack looked at his mother in surprise. "Quite, Jack. This is unacceptable." Judith threw down her napkin in a huff and grabbed Jack's hand. "This has been a pleasant meal, however, I have lost my appetite." She looked at both Luke and Arnold in disgust. She harumphed before heading for the door. Her attendants followed behind. "Jack is still too young. He is only 10 years old. Luke is expected to turn 15 in 2 months, which would be the perfect time to announce my decision to the nobles." Judith stopped for a moment to take in his words. After clicking her tongue, she left. Adriana, who had been quiet this entire time, spoke. "It's obvious that woman hates Sul." "Huh?" Marcus sighed. "I'll go speak with her later. This has escalated more than I thought it would." Marcus looked at all his children. "I apologize for keeping quiet about Luke. But I want all of you to trust my decision. I am not asking this as the Duke of this empire but as your father. Me choosing him does not mean I will forsake the love I have for my children. Your positions have not changed." Melina, who was the youngest at 10 years old, spoke. "Will Big Brother leave?" She held Arnold's hand with moist eyes. "No, Mel. I won't leave." He patted her head. "Yeah. But I need Arnold to do something. And this requires him to be away from home." Marcus explained. "Eh?" Arnold acted surprised. He already knew what would happen next. Adriana, Anna, Melina, Non and Luke looked towards the Duke. They awaited in silence. Even the servants perked up their ears to listen in. "Son," Marcus looked at Arnold with a serious expression on his face. "I want you to become the Lord of Whitech City." "What?" Adriana threw down her fork when she heard that. She stood up and shouted. "Are you insane? Sending my son to such a city that your previous vessel failed to even save?" "See, calm down, dear." Marcus tried to ease her anger by speaking gently. If one thing could cause the Duke to go depressed, it was being hated by his family. He might have been a mighty 9th-star spear user, but he was still a man who adored his family. No. I will not. You decided this without consulting me. He's my son too. Stop screaming so damn loud, mother. I accept, father. Arnold answered coolly. A. Adriana was taken aback by the lack of hesitation from her son. Usually, he wouldn't agree to anything right off the bat, even if his father told him to do something. See? The boy already agreed. Marcus smirked. Inside, he was actually happy that Arnold didn't reject his offer. What was weird was how Melina and Anna were still silent. Is something wrong, you two? Marcus asked when he sensed the tense atmosphere. Anna looked at him. Are you planning on breaking our family apart by sending him away on this crazy journey to save one of your cities? Are you going to be marrying me off as well? What about Melina? Will you agree for some foreign prince to get engaged to her? Oh, of course not. Ha 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 ha. Marcus laughed dryly. Both his daughters were looking at him coldly. They are really fond of their brother, huh? Marcus thought while smiling wryly. Adriana was looking at Arnold with a worried expression. Are you sure you'll be okay? Adriana asked. She held Arnold's cheek. Shouldn't be too hard. I've been learning about how to rule a city ever since I was 10 years old. I was fated to rule this city anyway, Arnold said proudly. In reality, he had no idea what to do to manage a city. Just because he transmigrated into a genius body didn't mean he'd become a genius too. His only skill involved how to handle a conversation in order to get out of it. It was expected of an antisocial person. But that was okay. He knew what to do. I'll order one of my gunners to join you, Marcus said while cutting a sausage. I'll do it on my own, father. Huh. I'll find someone on my own. Arnold repeated his words. Are you sure? Marcus asked skeptically. That city will be operational in the span of 10 years. Arnold stuck out his chest. By the way, father. Arnold spoke again. HM. May I have some money? I'm taking Luke somewhere tomorrow. Emmy. Luke looked confused. It was the first time he had heard of this. Marcus looked suspiciously at Arnold. Don't worry about earlier today. I won't do anything to him. He lifted his hands in defeat. Then where are you going? Marcus asked. Surely not to a brothel? Everyone who knew Arnold's daily routine thought the same thing. What the fuck, Arnold? You seriously went to whorehouses? Liam was disgusted. No. I'm going to the auction house, he said calmly. Aha. Marcus finally understood why. So you want to buy him his first sword? First sword? Luke looked at the two of them. Arnold sighed heavily. Do you know nothing of noble customs, commoner? As in tradition, when a younger brother succeeds the elder brother, the latter is required to buy the former's first weapon. It is a symbol of sorts. The elder brother recognizes the younger one as a man. Since I am the eldest son here, I am required to buy one for you. Luke's eyes sparkled. Arnold cleared his throat. You won, so it's fair. Everyone chuckled. The young master being kind for once. Sebastian muttered. I could clearly hear that. But he could agree with Sebas. Ha 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 ha. Take as much as you need. Marcus laughed heartily. Who would have thought my son would change this much after one battle? Adriana also smiled. She was happy at the outcome. Arnold wasn't behaving as they thought he would. "I'll kill you and your family if you don't fight me." That was his expected phrase. It was actually the same in the game. But Liam didn't want to waste his time to look like an idiot. What was the point? Although, Arnold did get the rematch he wanted. Since Luke was unable to use the Golden Aura release a second time, he was no match against Arnold. Nothing changed, however. Luke was still the heir after that. Arnold only got his petty revenge as he wanted, but that was it. The sword should be at the auction from tomorrow onwards. Today was Tuesday, which was the day Luke met Arnold. The following few days Luke went to an auction with the Duke. It was the same auction where Arnold was going to. To be clear, Arnold didn't take Luke to the auction house in the original story. The Duke had to do it. The sword was being sold there. If his estimates were correct, he had a few days before someone else bought the sword. If my predictions are correct, then my suspicions will be confirmed. Whether or not this was now his reality and followed the same simulation as the game, that sword would prove that. Chapter 5, Lauran's Pain. After dinner, Arnold excused himself without speaking to anyone further. It wasn't that he didn't want to. On the contrary, there were many things he wanted to know, but he was too tired to stay any longer. His body, as well as his soul, was exhausted. He headed up to his room. When he reached the top of the stairs, he noticed that his bedroom door was open. That's weird. I'm sure every room is locked unless the one it belongs to is inside. He remembered that he told Lauran to come to his room. Without further delay, he opened the door and was given an unexpected surprise. No, original Arnold might have found it to be the norm. Lauran. Arnold frowned when he saw Lauran sitting on his bed. What bothered him was the fact that she was wearing nightwear that was completely see-through. He could see her nipples and her maturing modest breasts. She was wearing a matching black panty and a black hairband with cat ears. There was even a tail behind her. "Nya tilde Master Arnold has returned tilde," she said in a cute voice. Anyone could see that she hated the way she said it. "Where is that tail plugged into?" Arnold shook his head. "That wasn't important." "Why are you dressed like this?" He averted his eyes instead of looking at her directly. Lauran looked at him in confusion. "But this is the routine I have to do every single night." "Did Sir Sebastian's blow to your head cause memory loss, Master?" Arnold seriously forces this girl to act like a catkin. Although it was cute, it was still wrong. He forced her to do something she didn't want to do. "Shall I start with mouth service first, Nea?" "Stop talking like that." Arnold tried his best not to take a peek. "No, Lauran. Cover yourself." I said, cover yourself. Take that white gown over there." He pointed to a chair. Lauran didn't understand why he had to do it, but she did as he said. "Done." Arnold finally looked back at her. "Good. Now we can get to the point of my calling you here. We are not having sex." "No. I'm not in the mood," he said immediately after she asked. She looked at him strangely. That was something she never thought she'd hear. He was a tyrant with insatiable lust. Most of the maids in this household had already landed in his clutches. It was like Lauran wasn't enough. When he wasn't bringing her to bed, it was one of the other female servants in the household. Or even girls from other households. Arnold walked over to his cabinet and pulled out a piece of paper. Lauran was taken aback when she saw what it was. It was her slave contract. "What are you doing?" She became anxious at the thought of what he was about to do. Freeing you. A. The scroll released a bright light at that moment. The slave tattoo that was on her chest began vanishing. Lauran's eyes widened. The light died down a few moments later. Arnold went to go sit on his office chair. The fire created a mysterious hedge across the left half of his face. His blue eyes shined in the light of the fire. It perfectly blended with his dark blue hair. From this moment forth, you are no longer my slave, he said calmly. Why did you do that? Although Lauran should have felt happy, she questioned his motive for doing so. The new heir of the household will need a personal maid by his side. Sebastian doesn't need to search for a new maid, right? We have one right here. He pointed at her. I already have Victoria by my side, so I don't need you to serve me anymore. What? Lauran still didn't understand. I'm leaving the manor in a week to become the new lord of Whitech City. Wouldn't it reflect poorly on me if the residents saw me walk around with a slave? After that fight, I realized something. Arnold stared into the pit of fire that burned and the wood that creaked. No matter how special I think I am, there is always someone out there better than me. That is Luke. Although it is untamed power, with the right training, he might surpass me in a few years. That power would probably far surpass Father as well. For some reason, I think Father feels the same way. Arnold looked back at Lauran. The head of the Berkley household must be a strong individual, able to compete with the other four great houses of the Empire of Yulia. He or she must have both a heart of compassion for their people and ferociousness for their enemies. Arnold bent forward. As everyone else says, I only have the latter. Besides my family, I do not hold compassion for any of the people who work for us or the vassals who pledged allegiance to our household. If I wanted to, I would have destroyed them, as there is a possibility they can turn hostile towards us in the future. Such is the world at the top. The ones beneath you always plot your demise. A strange smile appeared on his face. One of absolute malice. It was the kind of smile murderers had on their faces after killing. Lauran silently listened. Was it really because of the fight from earlier today? Wasn't that change a bit too fast? Or had he been acting this entire time as the usual Arnold in order for the Duke to remove him as head? If so, what was the reason? Is it because he sees that he is not qualified to become the Duke? Lauran came to her own conclusion. Are you saying you hold no compassion for the lives of others? Lauran looked at him and forced out those words. That is correct. People who I do not acknowledge are trash. They are merely bugs in my eyes. Arnold said expressionlessly. His eyes didn't even waver. What about me? Did you make me suffer because I was the same way? Lauran tried her best to hold in her tears. I was only a frail girl with no experience of the outside world. I would have married the one I loved and worked in my family's shop until I die of old age. Then they had to come and ruin it. Your people ruined my entire life. So? Arnold asked with a raised brow. All of that is in the past. Your father should have just given the money to those scoundrels without resisting. And just because I let those gangsters rule the underground of this city, doesn't mean they are my people. But you could have stopped them. You were there that day. I cried on my knees for you to save him. They beat him until his kneecaps were completely destroyed. Tears finally fell out of Lauran's eyes. She looked at Arnold as if he was her worst enemy. In a sense, he was. She was expecting a little sympathy from Arnold. Did he feel nothing for his wrongdoings? All Lauran heard was a cold, cynical laughter. Stop whining about the past, Lauran. You're free to leave or become Luke's maid. I won't force you since I'm done with you. Done with me? So, to you, a woman is just a piece of cloth that should be thrown away after it's dirty. Arnold could feel the mana in her body going berserk. However, she seemed able to control it without letting it go violent. She had been able to do so for quite a while, after all. Arnold smiled silently. His smirk made her blood boil. I want you and Luke ready by tomorrow morning. After tomorrow, you can do what you want. Now get out. Lauran gritted her teeth. She slammed the door shut in a fit of anger. Her small footsteps vanished after a while. Arnold sighed and held his head. Arnold didn't want to make her hate him forever. Just enough for her to not think about coming back. Her being close to him wouldn't benefit anyone. Although Lauran did indeed fall for the hero, there was still a sort of desire in her to be with Arnold. He thought she had Stockholm Syndrome at first, but it was actually her genuine feelings. Liam remembered a certain scene so vividly. If I say I want to come back to you, would you accept me? That was the day she let her feelings be known. Through all the abuse, violence, and pain she went through, she never forgot about Arnold. It was like she wanted to fix him. To show him what a good person he could be. However, that was her mistake. Her mistake nearly caused her death during her fight with Arnold. After losing Victoria, he had become the true villain he was destined to be. He held no compassion for Lauran, nor did he have quarrels about killing others. I don't want her to go through the same thing again. She was an important character in the game's story. That was why Arnold had to let her go. He sent her to Luke because of her importance to the story. Without her there was no hero party to begin with since she was one of the founding members. As long as he made sure the original hero party got together, then that would be enough. His involvement wouldn't be needed afterwards. The hero party would handle any threats that may come in the future. His actions now would make that future come true. Arnold, no, Liam looked at himself in the mirror. It was a face that wasn't his. Despite the fact that he was a completely different person, he had to now be Arnold. There were no instruction manuals on how to be a tyrant. Could he do it? Could he crush the lives of those beneath him to advance the storyline to the correct path? In order for that to happen, many had to die. Even those precious to Luke. Arnold still felt disgruntled about the lives that would result from his actions. What scared him the most was that he never finished the game. He probably had 5 years of knowledge at best. A majority of the endgame story he knew of was from reading spoilers online. Is it truly okay to change the outcome of the story? Arnold sighed. Let's sleep for now. I can't think anymore. He hadn't done much, but his body felt completely drained. After taking off his clothes, he jumped into bed. Maybe when I wake up, this'll all be a dream. Thus, he embraced sleep,